Excellent, excellent. Hello, everyone. This is wonderful. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Sweet Van Loan. I am the Senior Director of Workforce Development Programs here at Austin Urban Technology Movement, also called AUTMHQ. And I'm so excited to see everyone here today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, we're going to have a wonderful conversation with a senior principal testing engineer at NI, and we are going to have a lot of really great conversations. So I hope that you guys are really excited as I am. And I want to bring on, this is a special edition, by the way, special edition of Day in the Life. And we're very excited to have you here. So I'm going to bring up Michael real quick. Michael!
Hello.
And Michael, I may have said your title incorrectly. It's Principal Test Engineer, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome at NI. That's amazing. Michael, we're so excited to see you here and we're excited to get started. I'm going to bring up our slides so we can go ahead and start with this conversation. First of all, hello, everyone. We're so excited to be here. Michael and I have been very excited to talk to all of you guys. And we are Austin Urban Technology Movement here on my side. And the problem that we face is that we are facing underrepresentation. We're seeing a lot of Black and Hispanic folks and underrepresented communities not quite being present in the tech ecosystem. And also, unfortunately, we're just not seeing the availability for training as well. The lack of talent, the lack of people that are able to go into the workforce trained, ready to go. And so our solution for the next slide is going to be to create exposure. That's what part of my job is at workforce development, and also what our team strives to do is to get everyone out there in that tech community ready to go, trained, prepared, and exposed to everyone out there. This is amazing. So we're going to go ahead and get to the next slide. I want to know more about NI, Michael, because I know you've been there for a little bit. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. NI, formerly known as National Instruments. I think we changed the name about 2 or 3 years ago. It's based out of Austin. We have facilities throughout the world. We're mainly known for our software, which is LabVIEW. A lot of college students use it, and then outside in the professional world as well. But we also build and design, a suite of instruments and hardware for use across different industries. Here's a couple here. I pictured the aerospace and defense, semiconductor, transportation, and electronics. So our stuff is used across a lot of different products that you use on a day-to-day basis.
That's awesome. And so you work in, like, your company has software and hardware as well. In
Correct. Yeah, we do it. We deal with both.
That's amazing. Love that. All right, let's hit the next slide. All right, so we've learned about NI, Michael. We want to learn about you. Tell us about Michael Fanner.
Yeah, I'm a UTSA graduate, University of Texas San Antonio. Go Roadrunners. I've been at NI since 2015. Prior to that, I have about 10 plus years of experience in different industries as well. I've done a lot of government work. That's majority of my past. I've done some medical work and other different industries. Um, when I graduated, my degree is in electrical engineering. I find myself writing, more software these days. What my training is in electrical engineering. Outside of work, I like to barbecue and fish. I like to get away, separate, and kind of do me. I do have a wife, 3 kids, 3 dogs. So it's a little harder to get quiet time, but I enjoy it. It's fun.
I understand that entirely for sure. So it sounds like you kind of came into it a little bit non-traditionally, as many people do now. Of it wasn't a straight shot for you. You went, you got your education, you know, you tried the field and you found where you fit, where you feel like you're fitting the most. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think a lot of my experience kind of led me to where I'm at today. It's just the my experience in different fields kind of put me where I'm at today and made me successful in that.
Awesome. Love that. All right, let's hit the next slide. So you've gotten a lot done in your career already, Michael, and that's amazing. Do you want to elaborate about that?
Yeah, just from my past, some of the things that stood out. I in the medical field, I worked on this device. It's called a VAC, and it was to help wound care and helps a lot of diabetic patients who have wounds or things like that recover from different wounds. Like I said, I've worked in DoD field for 10 years, and one of the biggest things that I've done is I helped the troops in Afghanistan. Several years ago, they came to us with requirements and things they needed, and we were able to provide a series of devices and tools and things that help them out in the field do their jobs. I would have had several patentable device discoveries. Unfortunately, one of the things you learn after college is once you have an idea and you work for a certain company, that idea doesn't belong to you. So it was nice. I got to see it. It was cool, but unfortunately, it is not mine. um, Wallet and I, when I started there, I saw an opportunity for one of the systems they designed, and you'll see it here in a little bit. So I helped design and architect an automated test solution for one of their flagship systems. Um, and then from there, I'm just helping grow the test engineering department into this new field, and I was looking into, which is called systems engineering. We'll talk about a little more. And then furthermore, recently, NI has a Black Inclusion Network, NI Ben, and I have recently joined their leadership panel and to help career development for some of the Black employees there at NI.
Love that. That's amazing. I gotta ask. This is a question for me, Michael. What even gave you like that junction, that great moment where you were like, "All right, let's do this. Let's get into this field." What gave you that kind of go ahead?
It's I where I do great is finding what's missing, and that is my strong point. I may not be the best at hardware or the best at software, but I am good at finding what's missing and providing a solution for that. And when I joined NI, um, I ended up in a test group. That was the position that I interviewed for. But when I joined, I just found that there's something missing. What can I provide? And that's kind of I've filled a lot of gaps in my role at NI every day.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's just like an innate skill for you in some points of like, all right, this is my skill, this is what I can do, you know?
Yep.
Let's apply it.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
awesome. All right. And now, so why we need test engineers, and this is a great point of interest for me as well. So I'm ready for that next slide to see what you got for us, Michael.
Yeah, before you start the video, this video was produced by NI a long time ago, and I happened to run across it. But this perfectly explains why test engineers exist in the world, and why you need us in your life.
Oh, all right. That's quite the build up. All right, let's see what we got. All right.
Oh, then there we go.
Here we go.
Oh, the video didn't play.
So, you let me know, Michael. Why do we need test engineers? What is the importance of that position?
Yeah, if you look at your day-to-day life, the things you use all the time, when you turn on the lights, when you go to your car and you push you turn the key to turn it on, you go to your computer and you type on a keyboard, you want those things to work when you get them, and you want them to work for a long time or as long as possible, especially if you paid a lot of money for those things. So as test engineers, we test those things to make sure they work before they leave the company or leave the factory. We test to make sure they're going to function for a long period of time. We test to make sure they behave the way you expect them to behave, and things come out looking like the way you want them to and the way you expect them as a user. So
Excellent. So every time that I open up any sort of app that I've got or any sort of game that I play, I can thank you guys for that.
There there is a team of test engineers, software test engineers in the background that make sure you can open that app, you can run it, it can take your money properly. It
Oh, awesome. All right. So, what is a test engineer's, responsibilities? If I were a test engineer first day, what do I need to be aware of as I go into the job?
Yeah, the great thing, and the thing I love about test engineering is we get to do a little bit of everything. In our day to day, we get to mess with hardware, where we get to build fixtures and design things. We get to write some software to make sure those fixtures work. Sometimes we interact with different hardware. Um, we deal a lot with math and science. We have to calculate limits and probabilities and do some statistical analysis, and we get the right documentation to kind of help explain why how all of these things work, why we need them, um, and additional things on about the software and or hardware and how it's put together.
That's awesome. I know we're going to have some questions going. I already have some questions generating in my head as we speak. So if you guys have any questions, please make sure to put it in the comment section so that we're ready to go when we have our Q&A section at the end of this interview. Let's go ahead and hit that next slide. So the big question, you've already kind of answered it a little bit, but overall, what does a test engineer actually do? What is the job?
Yeah, we have a couple of main focuses. Our number one is to make sure the item is functional, as it says it's going to, it's functional the way it's printed on the box, the way you see it. We make sure it is functional to that degree, and everything is functional and works properly, and it's going to do what we say it's going to do. We also, on the other end, we work a lot with manufacturing. So since we don't necessarily design products, we make sure that the product is manufacturable, to make sure the manufacturing knows how to put it together, how to test it, and how they can test that it's functional. Um, and that third note, it's we make sure we test a specification, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. But we make sure it's functioning, the part of the standard of what we say it's going to function to, and how something's going to behave.
Delightful. Love that. So you work kind of as a bridge between the hardware and the software workers as well. So that's amazing. You're bridging two worlds, definitely. Awesome. Let's hit that next slide. All right. So this is the one that I've been super interested to get into, Michael. I don't know
Yeah.
if you knew that. But I am very, very interested to know what are the requirements versus the specs of your job.
Yeah. So, there's two worlds we live in. There's requirements, and then there's specifications or specs. Requirements are what, if you are a customer of something or a consumer of something, it's what are you looking for? What do you want it to have? And I listed a definition here, and I'm not going to read that, but it's essentially it's what you're looking for in a product. What's important to you? Those are the requirements. So usually customers have a set of requirements when they're looking for a product, and so someone gathered those requirements, and translates them to specifications. And that's where test engineering comes in. We necessarily don't define the requirements, but we get the specifications, and we make sure we test to those specs to make sure the product is functional. And we make sure the requirements are met, um, to make sure we're not missing anything. So we kind of fill that gap of what does a customer want. When we find a product that can, or we build a product that does what the customer wants, we make sure it's functional, and it does that every time for every product that comes out of our door.
Wonderful. That's amazing. All right. So let's go ahead and hit that next slide. So I have to be very honest, Michael. When I saw this slide, I was like, "What is going on here?" So please explain this one to me.
So here's an example of if you were shopping for a new car stereo, and you were like, what do I want in my new car stereo? So what are my requirements? Like I want it to have a big touch screen. I want to be able to have a backup camera and it play Bluetooth, and I want, the best, sound and things like that. So those are my must have. Those are my requirements. It'd be nice if it plays CDs, if it has an aux input. Those are nice features. I really don't care about those too much. I use my phone for all my audio, so it's nice if it has those. It's not a deal breaker if it doesn't. So this is an example of requirements when you're going into the store and you're looking for a car stereo. When you go into your local electronic shop and you say, I want a car stereo, this is what it must have. This would be a set of requirements you would give to an employee to help you find that car stereo.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about kind of like anything in life where we're going, all right, here are the things that I really, really need out of this product, and here are the things that I would really love,
Hmm.
but don't
Exactly.
necessarily need.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, let's hit that next slide. Okay. So we've gotten into a lot of different subjects, Michael, and I feel like your job, and the more we kind of talk about it, definitely in length, I'm going, there are a lot of elements that go into being a test engineer in general. So let's talk about product specification. What does that mean overall?
Yeah, so when you walk into that store, but back to our stereo example, when you walk into that store and you look at the box and it has those line items of what that thing can do, what that stereo can do, or what it has, those are your product specs. So that's it's listed on the product. This product has an AM, FM, and MP3 and satellite radio for sound. Excuse me. It has Bluetooth, it has CarPlay and Android Auto. So you would look at, you pull two stereos off the shelf and you read the product specs, and you will determine, based off the specs, what which stereo you want to go with. So in this case, because I said I wanted a big screen, I wanted Bluetooth and Apple CarPlay, the stereo on the right is something I would choose. And so as a test engineer, when you're looking at, if you worked for this car stereo manufacturer before it got boxed up, you would look at all of the specs that a car stereo is going to have, and you need to test all of those things. So what does that mean? I may need to test the transmit and receive radio frequencies to make sure the radio works. I may need to learn how to write MP3 codec so I can verify the MP3 works. Verify the stereo works and it can put sound out of the speakers, and a variety of other tests. So you look, and we may have to write a series of different tests that just span the device, and that's what a test engineer does on a day to day.
Oh my gosh. So sorry, I'm wrapping my head around all of the steps that you need to go through. So there's an entire process that you're going to have to go through in order to make sure that that device is ready to go. So if I'm in my car and I just got a GPS system that I'm just very, very proud of. But in that GPS system, that means there's somebody back there that tried that out, made sure that if I get a call from my mom, that it could bump into that GPS, hands free, all that good stuff. There's somebody on behind all of those sort of processes. That's amazing.
Exactly. Yes.
And you lead a team, right? So you have people that you work with, and I just am very curious, Michael, like how do you, I know we're not at the Q&A, sorry, but how do you delegate all of that? That's just a lot going on.
We have a team of people. We have a team of smart people, and we work day to day with. It can be a hardware engineer who may have designed the hardware part. It can be a software team who wrote some software pieces that we have to interact with. We interact with mechanical engineers that may design fixtures or things like that. So we work with a lot of people, a lot of different groups to make sure we're successful. Um, it can be challenging at times, so a lot of times we start off with what's the most important thing, and let's tackle that first and then work our way down the list. We're usually kind of the last before a product goes out, so it's usually rush, so it's very chaotic, but it's fun and it's very rewarding at the end of the day.
And as a leader in kind of that industry, like I have to know, especially for our automites, right? What are the skills behind that job? Like if I was wanting to get into being a test engineer, what would you look for in a candidate for that sort of job?
Yeah, the biggest thing is they have some technical background. It doesn't have to be electrical engineering. It can be software engineering, but usually some technical background. Um, we usually, the other avenue is we have technicians who help us build things, fix things. A lot of them have gained experience through the years, so we've hired several technicians also, to help as test engineers, just because they have the hands-on knowledge. So there's a various ways of getting into the field.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. All right, let's hit that next slide. All right. What is a systems test engineer? And there's a lot happening here, so I'm excited.
Yeah. So, sticking with the car analogy from earlier, systems engineers, when you have a lot of products inside one thing, we have to make sure all of those things work together. So you take your car stereo, you can have smart cars where the stereo goes down when you put the car in reverse. Your speedometer may change as your wheels turn. You want to make sure those things are functioning properly.
Mm.
The auto brightness on the car, it may go brighter when the sun is out and go dim when the sun goes down. So there's a lot of things that make your car all work together like it's one thing. As a systems engineer, we make sure all of those things work together. We make sure all the requirements for all of those things, they can work together, and they can be in one environment together, and play together nicely. And so that's what systems engineers do. And as systems test engineers, we make sure that all of these things are tested together in different environments, different settings, different conditions, so they behave the way you expect them to behave together when you hop in your car and you use these things.
That's so interesting because I never think of my car as like multiple entities, right? I don't think of like, the radio being the radio and the engine doing its own thing and, the brakes and all that other like it's so interesting. So we have to think in kind of the when we're in test engineer brain, we have to think of, all right, the radio is a part of this system, let's make sure that works. Then the engine is a part of this system, let's make sure that works, and so on and so forth. So the smarter the car, the more test engineer brain we need to use in a lot
Ex-
of
ex-
situations.
exactly, and it can get very complex when you think about some of the things that work together. Your dashboard when you're driving, or your lights. When you turn on your lights, you need to make sure that little light comes on there. When you slam on your brakes, or your brakes are wearing down, which is on the wheels of the car. If your brakes are wearing down or something's wrong, a little light on your dashboard will show you something's wrong with your brakes. So there's a lot of scenarios we have to think of and be able to test all of those different scenarios as well.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I love that we have people that do this for us. So I know I would not be able to like go through. I'm more of a software person. I stay there, that's my lane. All right, let's hit that next slide. All right. So we've kind of gone over a lot of the kind of itty bitty pieces all together, but in general, what does an NI test engineer do? What is the job description?
Yeah. So, I kind of gave a scenario for, a car, and then something more real life, something you can kind of wrap your head around. For NI, when you look at the array of products we have to make sure every one of those products has a test solution that we can make sure that when it gets shipped out of the door, it is functional and ready to go, for that customer to use.
Excellent. And when you're like as a supervisor, I know that you're looking for certain um worth ethic, just all these people that are coming into the industry. What is the most important thing or trait that a prominent like a person that's going to be a test engineer on your team, what is the most important trait that you look for?
Myself, when we interview different potential candidates, potential test engineers, I like to see people who can think outside the box, um, have an understanding of how to get there's multiple ways to solve a problem, to see how creative can they be in solving a problem. So we may give a simple problem and just watch them go through the exercise, and I don't expect them to know the answer. because a lot of times test engineers, we don't know it all as well, but we need to be able to ask the right questions and formulate our own ideas to get to the right answer. So those are the types of characteristics I look for. It's someone who can ask the right questions and be able to act on those questions and make decisions on those questions. You don't necessarily have to have all of the answers. It's being able to come up with the answer through, research, asking questions, and figuring things out.
I love what you just said, which is you don't have to have all the answers. A lot of times, especially in tech, we deal with that imposter syndrome a lot of the time, and we think to ourselves, we get into that room and we're like, oh no, I need the answer right now. Instead, we need a curious mind sometimes, and that is really, really important. And as a person who has a creative background, I love that answer because I'm like, yes, creative responses, creative ideas, creative solutions. That's a big part of the tech industry. So I love that that's something that you look for, and I'm sure a lot of people look for when it comes to having test engineers, for sure. All right, let's hit that next slide. All right, so I've been curious because I've looked a little bit into NI, right? I obviously we work with you guys, and you and I have had a little bit of conversation, and I want to know, what is NI like? How does this work? How does this whole product work?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, NI makes a ton of products. And so if you were to go to our website and like, hey, I want to use NI products to test something. So you would start off with a chassis, and a chassis is essentially like a shell, and it powers all of our products. So you would pick, how a chassis that fits your needs, depending on how many instruments you're going to need. And you need to go down from there, like, all right, well, I need a controller. And in our case, a controller are the brains. It's the CPU. It runs, all of our software, and it has the hard drive to store all our information. So you would pick a controller. Then you would look over at the modules and decide, what do you want to test? Do I need a DMM to make measurements? Do I need to be able to provide power to something to power it up? Do I need to be able to look at some particular frequencies? I'm dealing with RF signals. So we have a wide variety of products. You put all of those together into a chassis. You install software, and then you will have an NI product. And every single one of those products you see on a screen, they go through test engineering to make sure that there's a test solution, that they are functional and ready to go. And if you happen to return a product, we create solutions to figure out what is wrong with your product, why is it broken, and what needs to be fixed on that product as well.
Okay, so this is interesting because it sounds like test engineers are involved in the process before the product is out there. And then even after the product is out there, y'all are still working on it.
Yeah,
Trying to
hopefully,
improve
hopefully
it.
we don't see it back a lot. That's the goal. If it's we can catch the problems before they get out there, but unfortunately, it's some of these products are very complex, and we can't catch everything on the way out. Or things
Mhm.
break, and we need to figure out what's going on, so we can provide solutions to help diagnose, why did it break. Is there something we missed? And if there is something we missed, we will feed that back into the original test solution, so we won't catch that, or we can catch that in the future.
So we're adding into the process so that we don't make the same mistake twice.
Correct.
Beautiful. I love learning on the go. That's a very important skill in tech. Just going like, all right, that's not going to happen again.
You're like, oh man, missed that. Let's start over. Let's try that again. Like, yeah, that was a mistake. That was a miss. It happens. And we're all human, and so we do try to correct our mistakes and make sure the next one doesn't have that same issue.
Oh, I love that. And I just want to emphasize for our AUTMites or anybody interested into getting into tech, mistakes happen. It's going to be okay. We're all learning. It's a process. You've heard it from the master himself. Like, right? Like, it's going to be okay. Just make sure we learn from it, make sure we grow from it. We become a better engineer, better data entry, analysis, all of that good stuff. We become better at what we do when we learn from those mistakes. So I really love that sentiment. Thank you. All right, let's hit that next slide. All right. product test solutions, Michael? Hit me.
So, I mentioned, you saw a lot of products on that previous slide. This is a snapshot of a corner of a warehouse of all the different test solutions, different test engineers put together to test those different products. I believe this is out of our Hungary location. So it's one of our manufacturing locations, but we have locations all over the world that have facilities that look similar to this, to test the products, to make sure they're functional, to make sure they're ready to go. So when a customer orders one, they can go out.
I okay, so there are a couple of things that first of all, I love a good toy, so this just looks fun. You know what I mean? I'm like, whoa, what can I do with this? This is
Yeah.
amazing. But also, I heard something that's really important. So you have different locations in several countries, including Hungary.
hmm
That's awesome.
Yeah, it depends, and going back to requirements, there's certain requirements you got when you deal with shipping products globally that you need to adhere to. For example, if you're dealing with military or DoD, they like to see a lot of their products come out of the U.S. So we help. We have a facility here, in our
Nice.
office to make sure that it's tested and that it can meet that. There's requirements over in China that a product must come out of a certain facility, so we have establishments there as well to help us to get these products out to meet these different requirements, not only from electronic wise or from the customer wise, from different. You also got to consider different regions of the world and global and
Mhm.
policies. We got to adhere to those things as well.
What I love about that, Michael, is that that means that any of us that are like, you know what, I want to spend some time traveling the world. I want to spend some time in a different country, maybe learn a little of the culture. Like, you can take a job in another country, do the things that you're good at, and continue to kind of like travel and have that experience, those life experiences. That's amazing. So that to me is just super super cool, and even more so because we have automites all over the world. We're pretty global, and it's just really cool to know that like we can have automites in different places, and they get on as a test engineer. Maybe there's another job in like a different country, and again, it's the sentiment of being able to travel and being able to experience the world while still living your life, working and doing the things that you love. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it is a great benefit for working with a big company. You do get to on occasions. I don't do it a lot because I'm a family person, but you do get the opportunity to travel and see our different facilities. It's nice to interact with employees, face to face, not just over Zoom or virtual calls as well. So it gives us an opportunity to meet your coworkers in person that you've worked with for years as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to go in. Sometimes you're needed at the facility of, hey, this is a very important product or a project and we need to get it out quick. So let's have the person that designed it on site helping us to make sure we've worked out all the kinks. So there's usually opportunities there as well where you get to travel and test your product, and on, at that facility. So
Yeah, so even if you're like based in Texas or in Boston or New York or wherever you're living, still got a chance to get out there a little bit. That's
exactly.
awesome. Oh my gosh, you're making me rethink my career choice. No, I'm kidding. I love that. That's awesome. All right, let's hit that next slide. All right, so we've gone through a lot of what specifically a test engineer does. Specifically speaking for NI, what do you guys do? What is the thing for you?
Yeah, so from the system side, I mentioned earlier when you think about the car and how things just work together, and you really don't think about it as a car. Systems engineers for NI, we do something very similar if you think of like a car. This is one of our products called an STS. It's a semiconductor test system, and outside it looks like one cohesive unit that's nice and pretty and buttoned up and ready for use. On the inside, I showed you a slide earlier with all of the different products that can go into one chassis. And if you think this one has up to 4 chassis in there, that is just filled with a variety of products, all unique. Each one of these systems is unique. it's all built to the customer's requirements. So, and we have hundreds of customers. So each one, so there's, hundreds and hundreds of variations of an STS out there today. And we make sure that each one is functional to the requirements for that customer before it's shipped. So it's a very unique problem to have, a very fun challenge to make sure that, we address all of the different things that can go wrong.
Oh my goodness. I feel like you're kind of like Adam Man. Do you know that superhero?
I have not seen that one yet. No.
He's a scientist. He always thinks about the ways that things can go wrong. That's a shout out to all of you superhero nerds that are like me out there. Uh, but that's what I feel like. I'm like, oh my gosh, you could be a superhero, Michael.
That's what I'm watching tonight now.
Hey, there you go. Awesome. All right, let's hit that next slide. So, and Autumn HQ, just in my work, the way that I kind of work with my department, we work a lot with the AUTMites with our participants, and there are hard skills and soft skills, and we try to build up our AUTMites as much as possible, and getting those skills up to the level that is needed to get into those great jobs, right? So I would love to hear from you, especially as a principal test engineer, Michael. What are the hard skills and soft skills that you look for as a leader in test engineering?
Yeah, so usually, hard skills wise, and a couple I thought up, it's a technical degree of some sort. It doesn't have to be electrical engineering. We have electrical engineers, we have mechanical, we have software, but a technical degree of some sort. It's preferred a 4-year degree, but we have 2-year degree employees as well, that do great. So it's not necessarily, about, where you got your degree from or how you received it. It's you have that exposure to some technical background. Usually coming out of school is your first exposure to anything technical, when it comes to hardware and software. So we can go from there as long as you have that exposure.
Mhm.
Software experience is a plus. From the NI's perspective, you don't have to know our software, but just understanding how to write some software and the flow of software in any language, because you can usually translate it over, and we can usually provide some help to ramp you up. But having an idea of how software works and what does it mean to write certain types of code is very important for what we do day to day.
I had to give snaps to that last part because, I came in non-traditionally and I went in going, how many languages are there? Like, do I have to learn them all? And the answer is no. If you put yourself to it and you learn one language, it makes it easier to learn another language, makes it easier to translate, work within certain purviews, and you have a team to support you. So
Yeah,
I love that. And what I also heard that I also love a lot, especially as a non-traditional person in tech, is you don't necessarily need to have that degree. You can have a certification. Maybe you've had the training. Maybe you have done that on the job training where you're learning things and you're building those skills. And at the end of the day, hard skills, soft skills, they're skills. They're learned.
exactly,
They can be learned. Love
exactly.
that for yeah, I love that so much. Delightful. All right, let's hit that next one because I want to make sure that we're having time for Q&A, my favorite part. Yes. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off, Michael. I gotta ask a slightly possibly personal question.
Okay.
Um, so when you got into tech,
hmm
what was the motivation behind that? Was it you were thinking like tech is kind of the way to go? Were you thinking tech is just, equitable solution? Where were you at in that mindset?
So I had I'm gonna say unusual journey. I knew probably second grade, third grade, I wanted to be an engineer. Um, I did not know what an engineer was. So this is, when I heard about Austin Urban Technology, it's exactly what I went through when I was young. I didn't know what an engineer was, never heard of it. I knew I liked electrical things, taking things apart, fixing things. But where I grew up, there was no such thing as like, what is an engineer? What do we do? And then I met someone. He was on his way to college, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going for engineering." Like, what is that? And that just like that's it. That's what I want to do. I know I want to do that. And from there, I geared my everything I've done in school, um, mainly in school, is was geared towards engineering.
Oh, that's so cool. And you know what? That's the tea, people, honestly. It's not like we always know quite what it is when we go in. It's all about discovery. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
And I got lucky, and I always say like I call it lucky because I knew at an early age what I wanted to do. We have some people don't figure it out until they're later in life, and that's okay. Eventually you'll figure it out, and once you find it and you'll fall in love with it, and there's a lot there.
I can fall into that model. I was a little bit older. My college degree has nothing to do with what I do. That's awesome. I always think to myself, Geordie LaForge, Star Trek. Am I
I'm not a
nerding
Star
out too
Trek.
much?
So back to I like to fish and hunt. I mean, fish and
You're
barbecue.
like, that's not my genre.
I
That's not
I
what
I
I
don't. Yeah,
do.
you talk
Well,
about a
any Star
barbecue
Trek
show.
fans, yeah. Any Star Trek fans, he is the reason engineering is a big thing for me. Awesome. Let's hit those questions. Awesome. So, Moni, I'm hoping I'm saying it right. Moni, when how does one get into building for this role? So, how does one get ready, prepare themselves? What training should we focus on?
Um, so from the test engineering side, we deal a lot with. We start off, looking at schematics, trying to figure out how things work. So have an understanding of how to read schematics. Um, we start off with the fundamentals and electronics. So you can learn just the fundamentals, kind of get you started. And like I mentioned earlier, some software. Experience, either self-learn. We have a lot of guys who like to dabble on the side of different languages, but just being able to communicate that like I you have an understanding of the fundamentals, is where we like to start. So understanding the fundamentals, having a good foundation in the fundamentals is a great start.
I have to piggyback on that just as a person that, part of my job is to get people excited about training, excited about learning. I gotta say, like any AUTMites out there, anybody who wants to join on, it's that curiosity. Like, let's go ahead and learn. And it's okay. The learning process does not have to be a, you know, fail or win situation. It is all just a process. And, everybody's on their own journey. And that's what makes it really great.
Yeah, and test engineering, about the learning process. That's one of the things I love about test engineering. It's a continuous learning process. If you looked at those products, when you go back to the car analogy, the new technology may come out of detecting these self-driving cars, for example. How do I detect a stoplight or the sun's going down? That's new technology that we get to learn how to apply and learn how to test. So we're constantly learning new things, and it's that's what makes it test engineering exciting. We're constantly learning.
Oh, and we got another from our friend. I love the mental engagement that you are able to embrace in this role. The challenges here give you the experience to handle other things with technique and creativity and discipline. Oh, I can't agree more, actually, the more I think about it, because as I'm talking to you, and even in past conversations that I've had, I'm like, you are a person that looks at a problem and is automatically thinking of solutions,
It
which that's amazing.
it you I that is usually what is running through my head, and I have found, so you try to fix everything, so when someone's going to come with you with a problem, if you're going to a test engineer with the problem, be prepared. You're going to get an answer, or you're going to figure out how to solve that problem. So if you want someone to listen and not and not solve, the test engineer is not the person
That's
for
not the
you.
person for you.
Don't go to that
Go to
person.
those software engineers.
Yeah.
We're more on that side of things.
Yeah, but to the comment though, I do spend a lot of time, just outside of work. If I see a problem, how do we solve it? What's the best way to do it? How do we do it more efficiently cost wise. So I spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are people in tech that have kind of different brains, and what's really cool is that we all work together, which is why I love the fact that your particular career works with software people and hardware people, right? Because those are totally different brains to work with, and you somehow manage to translate that when you get that product out there. So I think that's very collaborative and very, very cool. Xavier from YouTube says, as companies move towards agile development methodologies, sorry, such as Scrum and Kanban, do you find yourself as a test engineer approving an increasing number of products with small bugs on release? Ooh.
That's a good question, and in fact, we've been dealing with this more and more on a day-to-day basis, and the approach we're moving to, and this is one of the things I've been kind of pushing towards, is instead of having these massive releases at the end of the year where you have to do these bugs, it's we can do more smaller iterations of releases, but just being more forthright, coming like these are the specs that we're covering for this release, and we're
Mhm.
going to focus on these specs. So if you take the agile approach of we're going to have multiple releases, we'll scale down the things we're going to focus on, and those things are the only things I'm going to focus on and test and make sure they're valid. There may be other things on there, but I'm not going to, for a given release, not going to say, hey, we know this, or we know this is working and we know this is not working, so it may go out with the bug, but we have communicated, we know we did not test this on purpose to meet certain deadlines, certain dates, things like that.
So what I hear, specifically, you lead your department and I lead mine, and it's just kind of like we have to prioritize. You have to make a set of things that are more important to focus on, to focus your bandwidth on, and get done, and to delegate out to your team. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah, prioritizing is the biggest one. And it's, and we go back to requirements. What are the most important requirements for this, for you customer or whoever is going to be receiving this? Give me a list of your requirements. Which ones are important to you today? Which ones are important to you tomorrow? And we will focus our energy on the ones important today, and then we'll work towards the ones on tomorrow.
Absolutely. I feel like that's life skills too. As you get older and you learn to move efficiently through life, you kind of start you get the skill to prioritize certain things of like what needs
Yeah,
to be done, what can I put on the back burner for right now and examine later, all that good stuff. So these
exactly.
are I and this is a big thing for me as definitely a person who came in non-traditionally, transferable skills. People
Exactly.
who can see what needs to be done on the spot and needs that attention, and the people who can see, what needs to be maybe not prioritized at this moment. That is such a good skill. And if you do that in life, test engineering might be for you. Might be for
Exactly. I need to
you.
add that to my list of interview questions.
You're welcome. I'm happy to help. Uh, Xavier's back. Doesn't I have a universal approach to projects, or is it up to the product owner or team to lead and orient the team in a manner that they seem appropriate? So, for example, extreme programming, Scrum, or design thinking.
Um, we are moving more towards a non-traditional, as our products become more non-traditional, we need to adapt to our customers. So our customers' requirements are becoming more non-traditional. So we've now worked with our customers more to have a more non-traditional release or approach when we're designing these things. So it depends on what the needs are. There may be a focus on hardware, and so that team is focused on that, and it's just to make sure the hardware is functional, and then we may have a sprint or a situation where like we need to get the software out and we need to make sure this is functional and everything is functional. So it can vary per product, it can vary per team. There's usually a project owner or a product owner that will help us. um, they're the ones that do the communication of what is important to the customer today, what do we need to focus on, and what we need to do to get out.
Awesome. Love that. And so I have a question just as a person. Like I've got siblings. I've got, I come from a family of 6 people, which yeah, I know. Uh, so Christmas is very, exciting, very rambunctious, all that good stuff. Can't stop the Van Loan clan. But my question is, when you are with your family, is that like fishing time, or is that like, do you talk about work or anything like that?
I I don't talk about work a lot. It's because it's usually unique, and so my some of my kids, two of my kids are little, so I don't talk about it a lot. I do talk about, we did this good thing, or Daddy helped with this thing, but we don't go into detail. That's usually time to just try to separate and get away, because like you mentioned earlier, you're constantly trying to solve problems, and at
Mhm.
times you're like, I don't want to solve problems, I don't want to do that, I just want to turn it off for a little bit, I just want to do nothing. Yeah, I just want to fish and try to. That's the problem I'm trying to solve now. Why am I not catching enough fish? So, um, so you like to do things that are out of your control because you constantly, you're always trying to control things. So,
No, that's fair. I fun fact, actually, we hadn't shared this before, Michael, but I also love to fish. I'm from Delaware. We love the water. We want to be out there as much as possible. So absolutely. A question that I kind of have been um, wondering, especially just given my role at AUTMHQ and how I work with AUTMites, is if I had any AUTMites that are coming to me, sweet, I want to be a test engineer. What advice would you give me? What advice would you give them, Michael?
yeah, I would definitely, first talk to even um, talk to an engineer, talk to any engineer, and just get advice about what you need to do to be, if you want to become an engineer or some technical. First, find what you like to do. So, is it software? Is it hardware? Get advice on learning what you need to do there and what you can do to build up your strengths there, and learn where technology is going. For example, there's a big push for Python. So if you are new and like, hey, I want to start writing software, what should I do? Almost everybody's going to tell you go learn Python. And with Python, you learn your software language and you can start applying that. So it's find what you want to do, what makes you happy, um, and then start learning the fundamentals from there and where those things are going.
It's so interesting that you say that because I am having flashbacks to when I got my software engineer certification. And they were like, at the beginning, they were like, all right, we got to learn Ruby, everybody. Everyone's got to learn Ruby. The, it's a coding language, everyone. And then, and then all of a sudden I learned Ruby. I was like, all right, I got Ruby. And they're like, all right, we need Python.
Yeah, it changes. I've been in the tech industry now for a while, and about every 4 to 6 years, there's a new. We got to do this, and so chasing that. If you're coming in, it can be challenging because it depends on who you talk to. Because if you talk to someone older, I'm like, oh man, you got to learn C. That's the way to go. Like no one,
Mhm.
no, come on, man. So you need to you have to do your own research in times as well. You just can't depend on what someone is telling you. You need to do your own research as well. But about every 6 years, I've been seeing, 4 to 6 years, I'll see a transition into what's new, and you'll see a bunch of devices and languages and classes coming out on that.
Yeah, and the encouragement that I would give anyone, if you're new to tech, old to tech, like whatever it is, that transition the first time, it's gonna feel a little weird because you were doing what you knew, right? Like I was doing Ruby, and that was what I knew. And then when I switched over to Python, I was just going, oh my gosh, can I do this? And I did. And after that, I'm going, change the language. I can learn it. It's okay. I got this.
Eh, the same thing goes in the career field too. When you look at, have a job, and if you're comfortable, but when you like, I want to change career fields, change jobs, whatever you want to do, it's, can I do that? Am I up to that? And you go in with a little fear, but once you get in there and you may fall down a couple times, you get a bumps and bruises, but you'll figure it out and you get the hang of it. And it's not, it's something you can't handle. You'll be able to figure it out. So,
That's something I feel like we've talked on a couple of points, and I want to emphasize it once again because I want everyone, including our AUTMites and anyone interested in getting into tech, to hear is that you're gonna fall down. You're gonna get those bumps and bruises. It's gonna be okay. That's a part of the process. And the fact that you've gone through that, it's gonna just make you better at what you do, honestly. The person that leads the best, does the best, comes up with those creative ideas, those are the people that kind of failed the most at the beginning because they tend to be really good at that. All right, I love this. All right, what are some skill building techniques that you practice or studied in order to strengthen your skill sets mentally? What a great question, Moni. I love that.
oh, that's tough. Hmm. I I tend to ask a lot of questions, and I usually I ask questions from people that are more experienced than me, even people that are younger than me. I come into every situation as I am the new person and I want to learn. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Is there's multiple ways of solving problems. So me being what I do is I ask questions and I try to understand how that person came to that solution. um,
Mhm.
and I do everything, to that nature. When I read something, I am a terribly slow reader. But the reason why that is I try to understand every word that's on that page, especially if it's something released. Those words were chosen for a reason. So understand why they chose that word. And it could have been an accident, but that's when you ask the questions. Why did you choose this word? Why did you say this? But I try to take everything in, understand it, dissect it. It's it was one of my ways. That's how I learned to study in college. And it's like I have to understand every word to make sure I fully understand the problem at hand before I go in there. So the one thing I was like, it's listening or understanding, maybe not listening, but understanding the full scope of the problem before you begin trying to solve a problem, because there may be pieces of information you may not know or have for you to do your job correctly.
Yeah, I it's so interesting because you said you're a slow reader. I am chronically dyslexic. And one of the things that came out of my superpower that came out of that was that I read things very deliberately, So it's helpful in that way. And I think you did what I try to tell so many people to do is to hone in on your superpower.
Hmm.
And I would even say, like, look at the things that you even consider maybe not your favorite quality about yourself. Like, I don't like going around telling people that I'm dyslexic, but because I'm dyslexic, I look at things very deliberately. And because of that, I'm very good at going, all right, here's what I need to do. And you look at things very deliberately in your respect of like, I read very slowly and I need to look at every single part of this email or this documentation or what's right in front of me in order to do my job effectively.
Yeah, another thing, just to expand on that. And another, when you go in, like I work with a team of people, and its team can change all the time. And one
Mhm.
thing I personally do is I know what my strengths are, and I don't pretend I don't pretend I know something, and that's what can get a lot of people in trouble. So I'm very honest about like I am good at this. This is my lane. This is what I'm good at, and together, and if everybody does that together, we can form. We form like Voltron. It's a everybody,
You made a
everybody
nerdy
together.
reference. I'm so proud of you.
You're welcome. But everybody together, if we all have our own powers combined, we can be really good. So I am very good. Like I know what my lane is and I know what I'm comfortable with. And together, if we all do that, and there may be something as a gap, so then someone has to raise their hand and fill that gap. But ultimately, if you know what you're good at, then you can go from there.
Absolutely. Akawande said, I'm definitely going over this session again. Just wonderful. Thanks, sweet Michael and AutomateHQ. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. No, Michael, I love and I know we only have a little bit of time left, but what I love is the fact that A, we got a nerdy reference. Very proud. I thought to myself, with our powers combined, we are Captain Planet, and you went Voltron on me, and I was like,
Voltron.
yes, I'm here for it. But what I love is that the things that I've heard is that to be a test engineer, to get into this lane, for example, you don't necessarily have to have a traditional background. All you need is a curiosity, the willingness to learn, and the willingness to ask questions.
Exactly.
That is amazing. And that means that anyone can get into this industry and work in that way and learn from some of the best minds in test engineering. So, Michael, it's been such a wonderful time chatting with you. I'm going to let you say your goodbyes to everybody.
Thank you, everyone. This was awesome. A great experience. Um, I am looking forward to working more with this group. I think this you guys are doing great things. Please feel free to reach out to me. I believe my LinkedIn is attached. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, want advice. I'm more than and willing to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. You've been amazing. And thank you guys all for talking with us or listening with us. I just want to make sure that I end everything with all the information that you need, because today is such a special edition, day in the life, and it's part of our 12 days of Autumn HQ, Austin Urban Technology Movement. And it's been a wonderful time already. We've already had so many wonderful events. So I just want to remind you guys to get on that link. If you're an AUTMite, I've sent it to you, definitely, to go ahead and look at our other 12 days that are happening. So if you have not looked at it, it's on our website at autumnhq.org/events. That's AUTMHQ.org/EVENTS. So if you are curious about anything that's going on, definitely check out that page. But also, if you are in the Austin area, gonna be in the Austin area, thinking about coming to the Austin area, I'm really hoping to see you, especially at our community holiday party that's happening on Saturday. I'll be wearing it with bells on, literally. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening.